Hello, Martin.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Oh, quite okay. How about you?
Yeah, good. I did some more practice since Wednesday. I just finished a session maybe about an hour ago. I improved my fastest lap time. Um, my overall fastest is 2049, but it's a difficult lap time to repeat. I think the session from this morning is very representative of my driving. There's one fast lap, 0:050, and then the rest is between 20:055 and 2:06. So, and not very clean. 40% of the laps I stepped off the track. So I know that's not great. Um, I think what really helped me um, on Wednesday was just figuring out a better line through the first chicane. I think that helped me improve over there. But I think still, even when I match Marty's brake point and end of braking, I still tend to apply more brake pressure. And I think I sort of feel that because I feel like I can turn in the car before it's time to start turning in. I feel like I've slowed down enough. But then if I think it's just difficult, and it's just difficult for me to go with higher speed and still make the turn. I don't know if it's only about the line or there's something else, something about just how I balance the car when I go with higher speed, but that's something that I find difficult. So I think although I'm doing better through the first chicane, I think there's still work to do, and I think each session is different in terms of where I am inconsistent, which overall is not great, but I think that tends to be one of the places where I still have the most time to find.
Okay. Well, if it's difficult to get to keep the speed through the corner, it could very well be a balancing issue. Maybe Marty is sort of throwing the car in a little bit more aggressive and is sort of sliding it a little bit and avoids understeer or something.
Hmm.
That could very well be.
Hmm. Do you want to maybe look at the last session just because I think it's somewhat representative of my driving so far this week in terms of like not everything being clean and just the variance in lap times. And I don't think we should look at everything, every single turn, since we also have only about 30 minutes, but maybe we can look at a few key parts of the track. So fastest against Marty.
Yeah, actually quicker in a couple sectors.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Basically, just three sectors where it's really apparent that you're losing some time.
Mm-hmm.
Especially sector 2 still. That's
Yeah.
the chicane.
Mm-hmm.
Shall we take a look at that chicane first?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, let's do
Since
that.
that is probably the opportunity where you can
Yeah.
gain the most.
Yeah.
Um, all right. So, just checking the line real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, your approach to the corner seems fine. That's better than last time.
Mm-hmm.
What looks a little bit bad is that you are not hitting the apex
Mm-hmm.
as well as Marty does.
Mm-hmm.
You're a couple centimeters, or actually probably over a meter.
Almost a meter, yeah.
Yeah, 82 centimeters. Too far to the right hand side. So you could probably either try to turn in a little bit more, or yeah, basically that's actually the only thing you can probably do. That's probably the best idea, and just try to hit that inside curb a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
So I think that's the challenge because initially I just had difficulty making it through the chicane. So last time we discussed, I was beginning turning in too early. So I feel like much more confident through the chicane because I just brake hard and then wait a little bit longer before I start turning in, and then the car just somewhat goes more straight from that point on. I guess I've overcorrected, but I don't know. I haven't really consciously experimenting with finding like a middle ground. But otherwise, it just felt it was more difficult to just keep the car balanced. Um, I can try to turn in a little bit earlier. Do you think? I mean, the thing is that sometimes I do something and I don't realize I don't do exactly as I intended. So how much earlier do I need to? It's probably a very like a moment
It's
earlier,
a
you
very
know.
small amount. I mean, we're talking about 80 centimeters line difference there,
Mm-hmm.
but that usually is equivalent to probably less than 50 or, yeah, I guess around 50 centimeters maybe of turn-in.
Mm-hmm.
So the correction you need to do is not very big.
Yeah.
Um,
And I guess when I do consciously any corrections, they tend to be bigger than what they need to be. That makes it difficult to that makes it difficult for me to um, fix some of those patterns. I tend to overcorrect. So do you have any tips on how to make such a minute adjustment?
that's a hard thing to answer, really. I don't really have any recipe how to do those super small adjustments. Um, yeah, I don't know. Wow, I guess you sort of have to do the adjustment definitely consciously,
Mm-hmm.
but you just might run into the risk that you overcorrect again. I guess it's just
Mm-hmm.
a matter of uh,
Mm-hmm.
logging lots of laps
Yeah.
and just trying to get as close as you possibly can to that point where you should be.
Mm-hmm.
Adjusting that probably back and forth for each lap a little bit.
Yeah.
But yes, since the difference is very small, I guess you just need to sort
Mm-hmm.
of, I don't know what kind of brake marker you're using. Maybe just pick something that's extremely close to it,
Mm-hmm.
slightly, or your turning marker. I don't know
Yeah, it's
what you're
it's
using
it's
for
pretty
reference
much
there.
immediately past the 100-meter sign. So, but
Okay.
yeah, I'm looking at Marty's graph, um, and the 653 meters. It looks like he's applying a little bit counter lock. So maybe he's already sliding the car, which is why he can turn in faster.
Uh, that could be. Although at that point the car's still going relatively straight.
Mm-hmm.
Just when you check the line,
Mm-hmm.
there's not really a whole lot of
Yeah,
uh, turning or it's not really a corner at that point
mm-hmm.
yet.
I see.
And also, if you look at the, I hope that's shown traction circle, and image isn't loading for me just yet. Doesn't seem to load right now. But if you look at the lateral acceleration at that point where he is doing that counter steer,
Mm-hmm.
oh, actually, that is 0.9 G already. That is quite a lot. It's not fully at the limit of cornering,
Mm-hmm.
but there is some cornering already going on. I mean, peak is around 1.3 G, so
Mm-hmm.
uh, it's a good 30-ish% lower. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there already seems to be uh, relatively significant cornering. Could very well be that he's sliding the car a bit. Let me quickly check. According to the understeer graph, he seems to have a slight bit of oversteer in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
So could be that the car is
Yeah,
sliding a little
he's
bit.
overlapping the brake and throttle a little bit. I guess I'm overlapping it too, but maybe
At
not
which
as much.
point? At the braking, you mean, or
At the end of braking, 662,
662?
657. Yeah, I mean 653. The very end of the braking zone.
Although that shouldn't really do all that much, especially in your case, as you're really low on throttle and really low on brake.
Mm-hmm.
I guess what's happening there is just uh, again a coordination issue that
Yeah.
you
Mm-hmm.
actually want to go off the brake and
Mm-hmm.
onto throttle, but you sort of do that simultaneously a little bit.
And how about Marty?
Um,
He's more intentional.
it looks more intentional, but I don't know what exactly he's trying to do there. He seems to have quite a lot of throttle movement there.
Mm-hmm.
There are two little blips on downshifting, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a lot of throttle movement that is, I don't know what for. I guess,
Mm-hmm.
as we discussed last time, it
Yeah.
might be that he's trying to move the brake bias forward a little
Yeah.
bit by
Yeah.
sending some torque into the rear
Yeah.
wheels.
I'll ask him next week, but you yourself don't do this typically.
Uh, Typically not, but I usually prefer to run a brake bias that is a little bit more forward.
Mm-hmm.
So
Got it.
there's no need when you run a brake bias more
Mm-hmm.
forward. But I know that Marty likes a very rural brake bias setup, so
Okay.
it could be needed in that case.
Got it. Okay, so again, I guess again I should again focus on the line, and I guess I'm crossing his line, so he starts out wider.
Yeah, he starts out a little bit wider for the right-hander,
Mm-hmm.
although that's not necessarily a problem as it's not too far to the right, so he can still
Yeah.
sort of go full throttle through the corner. There is a lift in there, but that's just for shifting,
Mm-hmm.
so that's not necessarily a problem. So what you could try to do is that's also some sort of overcorrection, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
Don't take such a shallow line on exit of the first corner. You
Mm-hmm.
can sort of track out a little bit more, but not as much as you did before we had the first session
Yeah.
on Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
it sort of went from tracking out too far to tracking out too little. So
Yeah.
some middle ground would be
Okay.
ideal, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
since that would allow you to take a little bit more momentum through the left-hander to the
Mm-hmm.
first corner,
Mm-hmm.
which is essentially what's losing you time apart from the line. I mean,
Yeah.
in the middle of the corner, there's a speed difference of around 5.5 kilometers per hour.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that is,
That's a lot.
yeah, yeah. I guess you could say that, especially considering that kind of car, it is quite
Mhm.
significant.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so again, I'll focus more on the line. And I guess if I'm aiming to be more in the middle of the road after the first part of the chicane, maybe that will help me with the line.
Potentially, yeah.
Okay.
Also, quite interesting. You're steering a sorry, you're steering a lot less than Marty is doing,
Hmm.
using much less steering lock.
Indeed. Huh. Yeah. I guess I'm applying some counter lock, so what am I doing here? I'm not full throttle yet.
You seem to have quite significant oversteer there. I mean,
Yeah.
your steering lock is extremely small
Yeah.
most of the time, even. I
Mhm.
mean, in the middle of the corner, right around the apex, you're only using 8 degrees of steering lock, which
Yeah.
is extremely little.
Yeah. It's interesting to see another lap. Let's see lap number 10.
10, that's 5.6.
Yes.
That steering trace looks a lot more in line.
So line is this pretty much the same. Yeah. My line is the same and no oversteer.
It was just some oversteer that only happened in that lap. As I said, the steering trace looks a lot more reasonable in lap 10. But yeah, I guess the main thing to work on is the line again.
Yeah.
Just try to hit the apex a little bit harder. Use the curb as much as possible without hitting those black and yellow sleeping policemen. And yeah, then track out a little bit more now.
Okay.
Not as much as before Wednesday, but
Yeah.
a little bit more than you do now.
Okay.
You basically just need to find the point of how far can you track out without having to sacrifice speed for the right-hander.
Yeah.
And that it probably just means how far can you track out without having to lift for the right-hander.
Yeah.
If you have to lift, then it was too much.
Yeah. Okay.
The right-hander should be flat out,
Yeah.
usually.
Yeah. Okay. So this lap looks different. I guess what is 3? I think in sector 3 I'm again looking at lap 10. I think I moved the brake point a little bit further, but I don't know if I brake where Marty brakes, it's like I cannot make the turn. Same thing. And I don't know why. I think if I brake later, I end up going more towards the middle of the track. But if I brake later, I just can't make the turn.
We're still talking about sector 2, right?
No, I moved on to sector 3. That's the following.
3, okay.
Yeah. Again, looking at lap 10, but I think the lap 9 was similar. So let's look at lap 10, then we can go back to lap 9. So
Okay.
I moved my braking forward. Now the difference is only about 5 meters. It used to be 10-15 meters. And this already feels like so when I brake where I'm braking, I go towards the middle of the track, so that's more or less matching Marty's line. But if I try to brake another few meters later, I just can't make the turn.
Okay. Well, you're again suffering from lots of oversteer, it seems. You're correcting massively there. Did you by any chance hit the grass on entry,
No,
which caused a massive oversteer?
no.
No?
I
Okay.
think I think what happens is even if you look at my trace, I do apply some throttle because otherwise I feel like I'm turning but I'm losing the back end. So when I apply some throttle, I think that helps me balance the car. So maybe do I start having the oversteer before applying the throttle?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it starts way before.
Yeah. So I think that's what I do. I try to turn, but then I get into oversteer and the throttle saves me. It helps me settle the car. Maybe I'm just turning
That does
to
make sense. Although I wonder why the oversteer initially occurs, because at that point. I don't think that it should occur that
Mm-hmm.
severely. What could be happening is that you are shifting down too early. You're
Yeah,
shifting a good bit earlier than
I
Marty.
am.
Maybe that is
Yes,
unsettling the car a little bit.
I'm shifting quite early, and I can hear the revs are pretty high after the downshift. Do you think that has something to do with it?
It could very well be. Let me quickly check the RPM,
Yeah.
how high the RPMs
And
are
and I
going.
and I'm not blipping. I practiced it in one session, but I was blipping way too much compared to Marty, so I decided to practice it a different time. But yeah, definitely when I brake and downshift with braking, and I've noticed that the RPMs are pretty high.
You're hitting 6,500 RPM roughly, which is I think higher than what the limiter is set to in that car. So
Mm-hmm.
even though it's not overly much over the limiter, I think still it could also be kind of risky to do that in races to shift down that early because
Yeah,
the over revving, the engine might blow. I don't think
yeah,
that the 100 RPM over the limiter or 200 is that crucial and
yeah.
very risky, but still there's some risk. The limiter is there for a good reason usually.
Okay, so Marty is riding in fourth quite a bit more. Yeah, let's see. Which offset was it? 1272. So he's still braking and he's barely turning. I guess he applies the brake for less pressure, slightly longer, and I guess that helps him slow down the car before downshifting. And I really just tap the brakes for a shorter period of time, and I need to downshift while I'm on the brakes. But then I haven't slowed enough. How's the speed?
You're actually slower.
I'm slower, so it's not just about the speed, it's about the revs.
It's not speed related. The problem you're seeing. I would rather assume that it's either the downshift that is maybe causing it, or what I could also imagine is happening. You're turning a little bit while you're having your peak brake pressure. Due to the relatively far rearward brake bias, and at that situation or that point in time, you're not using the throttle at all to counteract that. It could also be that your rear wheels are actually close to locking up, and therefore the car is, difficult
Yeah.
to drive. That's actually very well visible. If you look at the rear wheel spin graph, Marty is only at 3.5% slip in the rear on the left-hand side, and he's using. If you look at the front wheel slip, he's having around 6.5% on the front, and 3.5 in the rear.
Which
So,
offset? Three and a half. Yeah, I get. Yeah, I see.
1256 meters.
1256.
That's
Yeah.
exactly where you have your peak in
Yeah.
the brake trace.
Uh-huh.
Marty is only at 6.5% front and 3.5% rear on the left hand side, whereas you're at 8.8 in the front, which is not too bad. 8% in the front is okay, but you're at 12.8, actually 12.9% in the rear. And I think that could very well explain that oversteer, because you're having more slip in the rear than in the front, which is already sort of leading towards massive oversteer. And also 12.9% is quite high.
Yeah.
When we're just talking about braking, I mean, there's also some lateral load on the tire, which means the overall slip is really quite significant. So what you could try is maybe reducing the peak brake pressure use for that turn a little bit, or something that could also help you is mess with the brake bias, move the brake bias a little bit forward.
So I think it was 55%. How much? How should I change it?
57 for starters, I'd say.
57.
Yeah, 2% increments are usually quite good to
Mm-hmm.
figure out whether it's helping or not, or whether it's
Mm-hmm.
actually hurting. I mean, if you sort of see, okay, I can do exactly the same lap times, but
Mm-hmm.
the problem has shifted from oversteer to understeer, then I'd recommend just going to some sort of middle ground and switch it to 56 and see whether that
Mm-hmm.
sort of fixes it and gives
Okay.
you a nice balance.
Okay.
But initially, I'd go for 57 immediately.
Okay. Okay, so what I should expect to see is have less understeer specifically here, and
Less oversteer.
yeah, less
You
oversteer, and
experience
the car
significant
should
oversteer.
feel more balanced.
Yeah, that's what I would expect if you move
Yeah,
the brake bias a little
and
bit
you're
forward.
saying Marty is just used to this driving style, so that's his preference and he's comfortable with it. But for me, does it make sense to try to learn his style, I, or not?
Uh, highly depends on what car you plan to drive later on. But generally, I would not do that.
Mm-hmm.
The reason for this is just what he's doing under braking with the throttle input. He's just basically virtually moving the brake bias forward
Mm-hmm.
by using throttle while braking
Mm-hmm.
to sort of prevent the wrist from locking up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's only sort of, even though it's not modeled just yet, that's causing brake wear,
Mm-hmm.
higher brake temperatures, higher tire temperatures, tire
Mm-hmm.
wear, and
Mm-hmm.
it also consumes fuel. And
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, by moving the brake bias forward by using throttle,
Mm-hmm.
it's essentially the same as if you won't use any throttle and
Mm-hmm.
just move the brake bias
Okay.
mechanically from the adjustment knob a little bit forward.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
um,
So
you
this
basically
would be
get
a
the same
useful
result.
technique if for one specific turn uh, you need to get extra, what is it, rear or forward, extra forward bias, but then the rest of the track you don't need it. So if you only do it in one turn of the whole track, then that would be useful. But if you're doing it everywhere, then you're better off just changing the bias.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, there are tracks. Uh, Motegi, for example, is a pretty good example. On the back straight, there's a downhill section where you have to brake for a fairly sharp 90-degree turn.
Mm-hmm.
Due to the downhill characteristics, you sort of need to move the brake bias only specific for that corner.
Mm-hmm.
So in that case, it might make sense to run a bias that works for the rest of the track
Mm-hmm.
perfectly and just use a little bit of throttle for that
Mm-hmm.
particular
Mm-hmm.
corner.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Marty's doing that pretty much everywhere at
Mm-hmm.
this track. Most braking phases look like
Yeah.
he's using throttle
Mm-hmm.
for balancing issues. Then I'd rather go with a modified brake bias.
Okay. Okay. I'll try that, and have a session with him next week, so I'll ask him exactly what he's doing and why. But yeah, I think you explain it with dynamic brake bias. David explained it this way, and I think Rance explained it this way. So it must be this. But yeah, I'll hear from the source as well. Okay, so I'll try that. And I think on the forums, I think people also recommended 57, 58. So I think I'll try 57, see how that works. In which case should I increase it further to, let's say, 58, 59?
Well, basically, if you still experience the issue you have right now, that the car is sort of stepping out under braking or on turning,
Mm-hmm.
while you're still slightly on the brakes.
Okay.
If that seems to continue, I'd
Yeah.
recommend going even further.
Okay.
Although, usually 58 is already, at least from my experience, although I haven't driven the car as of late, so take it with a grain of salt. It could very well be that the fronts then tend to lock up under braking, under heavy braking.
Mm-hmm.
So 58 is maybe too much,
Mm-hmm.
but
Okay.
eh, yeah, just
Okay.
try it out. Maybe it works for you. It's all really driving style dependent on.
Okay.
It's just preference. Some people like an understeer car on entry, some an oversteer
Mm-hmm.
car.
Okay, I'll try.
It's a matter of preference,
I'll
really.
try 57, and then the other thing is, regardless, I should just apply less pressure and slightly longer. So I should try to replicate Marty's brake trace.
You can at least try. Yeah, I mean, it kind of depends on the brake pressure as well. Maybe Marty is forced to do that kind of low peak and for a longer
Yeah,
amount
because of the bias.
style because the brake bias is forcing him to do that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay.
with a higher brake bias, your style might work.
Okay.
That's that would require some further testing.
Okay. Okay. I'll play with it. Cool. I think given that I don't have too much time left for practice and I plan to race tomorrow and day after, I think that that's enough. I'll just focus on those two turns. I think that's where I'm typically least consistent, um, and where I struggle the most. So I think that's very useful inputs. I did try. Remember, we were wondering why I'm losing speed at the end of the straight, and I did an experiment just from stopping on the start finish line and accelerating with more or less fuel, and I didn't see any meaningful difference. And then when I looked closer at different laps, just comparing the end of the start finish line, I think it has to do with the steering. And when I look closely, when I turn the steering more, I lose some speed, and when Marty turns the steering wheel more a little bit later, then he loses speed. So yeah, that's the explanation. It's like 0.1, like that's the difference in speed that you gain or lose just by turning the steering wheel more. So
Oh,
yeah,
okay, that's a lot more than I expected. Really,
yeah,
I wouldn't have thought that the steering input has such a big effect on the speed there.
mm-hmm, yeah.
That's interesting.
That's what I concluded. It wasn't very big, but it's like 0.1, 0.2, and they might. I guess they sort of evened out at the end because I just turned a little bit earlier than him or the other way around. But yeah, that's what it was. And then for the other thing we discussed, I actually tried blipping in one of the test sessions, and that takes away quite a bit of uh, just concentration. So my lap times were pretty bad while I was trying to do this because my attention is on blipping the throttle, but I was blipping it too much, like 40-50%. I tried what you suggested, just cruising, holding the downshift paddle and blipping the throttle, and I would only get it to really downshift at like around 40-50%. And what Marty does is like really tiny blips, like 5-10%. So maybe it's different when you're already decelerating.
Yeah, when you're already decelerating, you're sort of having the engine inertia working in your favor as well. You need a lot less blipping,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe even no blipping in that car
Mm-hmm.
to get it to shift. So
Mm-hmm.
that definitely makes it different.
Mm-hmm.
It's also car dependent. Some cars require a good blip even under braking. Apparently, the Skippy does not.
Mm-hmm.
But that's to be expected. That
Mm-hmm.
when you're actually slowing down, that the amount of blipping you need is much less than if you're just coasting and then trying
Mm-hmm.
to get the gearbox to shift.
I've noticed sometimes I think I really would need the blipping, and I think this turn or this sector 4 or 3 would be a good example because if I don't downshift while braking, then I'm in the middle of the short straight before the right-hander, and I'm in high gear, and if I just downshift there, the car typically unsettles. So that's a place where I should, if I downshift sort of in an odd place where the car is not very well balanced, I should definitely blip to keep the car balanced, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's essentially the same thing that you would in a car without a sequential gearbox.
Mm-hmm.
What you would do with rev matching
Mm-hmm.
when you're on the clutch and then sort of giving it some revs before you release the clutch again.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, the same thing might happen.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, cool. So I think I'll practice the blipping, but maybe I'll start it next week, earlier in the week, because I think like right now it massively disturbs my driving. and I guess when I learn a new track and I learn it with the blips, it will probably be easier.
Yeah, surely will be. If you start with it, the earliest you can when learning a track, it's probably much easier to get that figured out. Which track is next in the Skippy?
I think it was the Sonoma.
So no. Oh, okay. Well, there are a couple of corners where you really need it, or where you could really do with it. So it's a good place to start learning it.
Okay. Okay, cool. So I think that's all I had. Thanks a lot, Martin. I'll do some more practice today, and then we'll see how I'll fare tomorrow at the racing. Fastest lap time so far for the week is 2:03 900 something. So yeah, almost another second faster than my fastest. So there's still more work, but not enough time this week.
Was that in practice or qualifying, or is that the time trial?
That's a time trial, fastest lap from the time trial. So
Okay.
yeah, I have no clue how to get an extra second, but yeah, that's a different topic. All right, cool. Thanks a lot. Good luck at the race tomorrow.
Thank you. When do you plan to race? And I'd maybe spectate that and check out what you're doing.
Probably my morning. What is it? The 6:15 p.m. GMT. I'll let you know. I can message you if you have time, or I can send you a replay if you wanna watch.
Yeah. Just let me know when you're racing, and I'll take a look.
All right, cool. Thank you. Have a good one, and talk to you soon.
Yeah. To you as well. Talk to you soon.